I was invited to talk to the Pingry High School attendees of Science Day, and this was the slideshow from there. And I asked, hey, this was 2014, by the way. Let me get to know the audience. How many are middle school students, high school students, college, grad and post-grad, moms, dads, teachers. And then I told them I was a doctor at the VA. I helped veterans with some of their health concerns. At the time, I was triple board certified, which just means I passed a few extra exams. The real reason I'm here is that I saw the journal that Pingry students put together presenting the students' own scientific findings. And I wrote to Dr. Maxwell that I was supremely impressed and would love to offer myself to students who are interested in medical sciences. And so the question was, can a doctor be considered a scientist? And just trying to connect with them. This is, me as a kid. I was a kid just like them. And get through all of that. That was 7th grade? No, 6th grade. That's 7th grade, 8th grade. Ugh, I went through, there's Pingry. Ugly phase. Woo! Graduated med school. Yep, that's me. Anyway, I actually was also interested in science in Pingry. I took honors physics. I was in AP biology. I did calculus, but I was also very interested in music. So not just a one-trick pony. I also released a cassette. At that time, cassettes were how we got our music out. So start by defining what is science. And if you looked at dictionary.com at that time, it was a branch of knowledge or study dealing with a body of facts or truths systematically arranged and showing the operation of general laws, systematic knowledge of the physical or material world gained, systematic knowledge in general, knowledge as of facts or principles, a systematic study. So I propose that science is also a way of life. Science alone of all subjects contains within itself the lesson of the danger of belief in the infallibility of the greatest teachers of the preceding generation. As a matter of fact, I can also define science another way. Science is the belief in the ignorance of experts. And that was Richard Feynman, the great Richard Feynman. Religion is a culture of faith, while science is a culture of doubt. Also Richard Feynman. And we scientists wouldn't know truth if it jumped up and bit us in the ass. We're probably fairly good at recognizing what's false, and that's what science does on a day-to-day basis. But we can't claim to identify truth, Dr. Holland. So that kind of makes you wonder, hey, who's the ultimate scientist? Could be the rebel without a cause. Basically, there's a lot of rebellion in science. It's, hey, you're telling me this is true, but here's an example of when it's not. So that's getting, kind of philosophical about science. But let's answer the question, is there science in college for a pre-med? And the answer is yes, a ton of it. We go through biology, chemistry, physics, organic chemistry. We have to do some humanities and psychology, but there's a lot of science. Is there any science in med school? Unfortunately, maybe a little too much science. But they also sprinkle in some epidemiology and ethics, and there's now humanism in medicine, which I think is good. So what is a doctor? Well, you probably think of this guy. You don't usually think of this person, though. And unfortunately, you'd be wrong. A doctor is a teacher. It comes from the Latin docere. So if you're seeing your doctor, they should be teaching you something. It's not healer or fixer or solution provider. Actually, doctors do a lot of teaching. We teach at lectures. We teach at bedside. And I think more importantly, we teach our patients. So science and medicine is actually an applied science. And we use technology, engineering, bench work, and basic science, observations of populations, and we are definitely using a lot more of the genetic knowledge that's available. Clinical trials, case reports, and peer review are considered evidence that we can use to inform our scientific decisions, medical decisions, scientifically informed. a little less strong in terms of evidence is expert committees and editorials, but these also inform our decisions. And I'm really not sure why I had this picture in there. I wonder if I was saying all of these things lead to us having a plan, and we're out in the field and we're trying to score a goal. I don't know. So I'm a physiatrist, and this was collected from the, I think this was from the AAPM&R. Physiatrists or rehabilitation physicians are nerve, muscle, and bone experts who treat injuries or illnesses that affect how you move. And there's a whole lot here for you to go through if you're not sure what we do. But I can tell you I use science all the time, especially when it comes to gait analysis. And we're looking at tension, we're looking at motion, dynamics. There's all the cycles, components of the gait cycle, the muscles that are firing, the forces at a certain rotational center of mass. I use it in prosthetics. When amputees need a prosthetic limb, there's a lot of science going on there. I use it for when I'm performing electrodiagnostic testing, where I'm delivering electrical currents to the body and looking at what happens. I'm also taking an electrode going into the muscle and looking at voltages. That's physics. We use evidence-based medicine in pretty much every field of medicine at this point, and that is defined as the conscientious, explicit, and judicious use of current best evidence in making decisions about the care of individual patients. And it requires integrating the best available external clinical evidence, and that includes bench work, basic science research, but also kind of population and statistical research. The latter reflects more compassionate, thoughtful, and efficient diagnosis and treatment. So the 5 steps of evidence-based medicine are asking focused questions, finding the evidence, and then critically appraising that evidence for validity, clinical relevance, and applicability. Then we make decisions, and a lot of times that's done with the patient. Then we evaluate performance, and then there's an audit, and this is just constantly going on. And so that's why it seems to the public like we don't know anything, because we're constantly reevaluating and reassessing what is actually going on and whether this was the most efficacious intervention or not. Not everything that proclaims to be scientific is going to be useful. And so this is one example of a way, a system to stratify evidence by quality for ranking effectiveness. And you've got level 1 through level 3 evidence. For example, level 1 means that it has evidence obtained from at least one properly designed randomized controlled trial, all the way to just expert opinion, which would be level 3. And then categories of recommendations, level A through D, are where you can get some sense of how much benefit you can expect to get. The benefits outweighing the potential risks, or the risks actually outweighing the potential benefits, or just not having knowledge of it. In reality, evidence-based medicine it's a tough line to walk because it basically takes away context. So if you had a deodorant and basically just used a whole bunch of customer reviews to decide which one you're going to take, that's one way of doing it, but it may not be relevant to you. One type of deodorant might actually work better for you than the one that works for the majority of people. And the problem with randomized controlled trials is that they provide information on the value of an intervention without context, such as patients' beliefs and wishes and clinicians' attitudes and beliefs, despite the fact that these aspects may be crucial to determining the success of the intervention. So the other way to do it is observational methods, and those maintain the integrity of the context in which care is provided. So it can be tough to navigate, and what we try to do is get as many of these different sources of evidence as possible and get quality of recommendations based on that. Doctors will all agree that there's a science component and an art of medicine. The art of medicine is a little harder to define or quantify. The ability to listen, empathize, to inform, to maintain solidarity. There's moral dimensions to care. There's interpersonal skills that can contribute to an outcome just as much as practical technical skill. And actually, to be honest, the art of medicine is a practical technical skill, even if we can't completely define it. Attitudes dependent upon our upbringing and personalities can be changed with education or appropriate legislation, and they can be evaluated in their contribution to patient care or diagnostic technique, at least in principle, and even if these are crudely done. But these have definitely contributed to medical education over time. Ethics is another component of what guides our treatment of a patient, and there are principles of ethics that guide us. So one of them is the principle of autonomy, and that's the patient having the right to refuse or choose their treatment. Another is beneficence. The practitioner acts in the best interest of the patient. I know it sounds crazy to have to even point this out, but these are all aspects of how we approach clinical care, and these do separate us from many of the other professions out there. So yes, is the physician a scientist? Yes, but we are balancing art and science when we are seeing our patients. And the goal of life is balance. I have tried to balance the science with a happy marriage, happy family, good friends, and maybe even a little bit of music in my life. I have a new daughter. So I recommend becoming a doctor if you like science, but you want daily interactions with people. Also, if you feel afraid of, or that you are too stupid for science, which is what I felt. I was a physics major and really didn't think I was going to be able to contribute to the literature. Also, if you want to directly help people. And medicine is a beautiful blend of science and non-science, which allows flexibility that is not found in pure science research, and application of scientific techniques to the care of actual people on a granular and sometimes even macro level can be very satisfying. And that was my slideshow.